by Lord Dufferin, and I just so happen to live in Dufferin County. So there's all these little weird connections on that level for me that started to like draw me into the book. And then the funny thing is that the subject matter inside of the book is really irrelevant. It's the poetic nature of the language that I was so enamored with. And every time I looked at it and just flipped it open and started to read it, didn't matter if it was like chapter to chapter. It was just like, listen to the way this is worded. Like, I mean, nobody talks this way anymore. And this was just like the happenstance memoirs of somebody's, traversing of the Atlantic Ocean from Great Britain into Canada. So to me, it was also saying something in a poetic way about the description of that moment. And for me, it sort of amplified what the music was saying and how I was saying it. So I went, hey, look, this is what's supposed to happen right now. Just like when you have that initial thought about something, right, and you follow it and it becomes something just because you have the thought.
Well, it's such a good way of thinking about it too, because this way you're not pigeonholing yourself into a specific genre.
Well, yeah, and what I've been fortunate, especially with somebody like Mike Stover, is with the music. Then finding multiple venues and or areas where the music can sit. If it's an instrumental tune, it could be used for a movie or television or a radio sting or anything like that. And if it's a pop number, then maybe it could be used commercially. If it's country, let's send it to Nashville. So I like that. And I also grew up listening to artists that pushed those boundaries. The Beatles, I mean, one of the most simplest way to look at it is, they were writing pop tunes when they started out, influenced by early rock and roll. But look at the careers it developed. I mean, you've got songs that have a jazzy kind of a vibe to it, rock, Latin-y kind of stuff.
Right.
They moved from time signature to chime signature. This was just being artistic with the music, and that's what I like about it.
And they're absolutely great, because I can think of about 3 albums off the top of my head that kind of display just the change and stuff they learned, i.e. Magical Mystery Tour, Sgt. Pepper's, and the White Album.
Absolutely.
3 of the biggest ones.
All those records, I mean, people would say, well, that's not their best stuff. I mean,
are you joking?
Right, but that's the thing, is that we've also become so conditioned. That's why one of my pet peeves about like American Idol, Canadian Idol, and all those other shows is they've also conditioned the listening audience to expect a certain kind of formula, and that's not what art is about. I mean, Christ, look at a Dali painting. Listen to him speak about what art is. I mean, it might be off the wall when it comes to his interpretation, but that's the point.
Exactly.
That sometimes life isn't by, in this beautiful organized format. Human beings are, innately infamous for like saying, let's organize it. But then we walk into a forest and go, wow, isn't this beautiful? And it's chaos.
Exactly.
There's branches everywhere and things growing on the ground and leaf litter, but we stand there and we have this eloquent moment of silence, listening to the breeze blow through the trees. That to me is where like the same feeling you have when you have that feeling where art comes from, and when you're being shown something, provided you follow it, right?
Right. You know what? I couldn't agree more, because like I like variety, but I like to hear different stuff I haven't heard before. That's why the Gypsy Ghost really stood out to me. And there's another band that just recently started in the UK, another indie band called Grasscutter. And the first time I heard their song, Angel's Truth, I was blown away. I've never heard anything like this.
You see, that's what I mean. Normally commercial music won't be pumping that out there because they're looking for the formula. And this is really like an entire show, a different show on that subject matter in terms of like why it functions that way. Because to me, I think there are other nefarious things afoot and concerning what that is and how it works. I mean, look, if we use an artist like Taylor Swift, okay, now I know her sister, Amber, quite well, and most people don't know Amber, but for years, she's been a performing musician. She's a great bass player, guitar player. She can play the drums. She's really talented. And Taylor is the perfect little looking girl that, plays the 4 or 5 chord tunes.
Right.
And I see her selling more cosmetics, women's jewelry, clothing, her own clothing line. And then I'm asking you, what is this? This is not an artisan. To me, this is a spokesmodel. It's a spokesmodel that it has developed this, popularity role because of what they do. It's the same thing with Britney Spears. I mean, she was a Disney kid.
Right.
She was in, and then all of a sudden, click. Now all of a sudden, you've got Britney, new Britney, that's selling the sex version of the Britney thing. It's the same thing with Miley Cyrus and the Hannah Montana factor, and now she's sex gargoyle. You know what I mean? So, to me, that's like, again, where your statement is very powerful from before, is the fact that in your own community, you can relinquish and get rid of all of that other bull crap and really see people talking about stuff that's happening now.
Right on. So, without further ado, we're going to get to your newest single, and this is an awesome tune. This is
Thanks.
Ed Roman with Jamaica.
Inside a hidden rift, dissing on Babylon, dissing on Babylon. Well, the home of Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Jimmy Cliff. Hold your hands and wave them high. Feel the pulse and watch it fly. Well, you know you're home when you hear that sigh. Well, a jewel in the ocean is where it lies. In Jamaica. Jamaica. Well, in Jamaica. In Jamaica. In Jamaica. In Jamaica. In Jamaica.
Jamaica, Ed Roman. Now, Ed, like I said before you got on and played the song, I really like the song, and it's not just because it has that kind of Caribbean, slash reggae tone to it, but it's also got some funk in there too. And man, I love funk as well. Like, it was always been a huge fan of Parliament and Bootsy Collins, and so that really kind of struck.
Oh man, you're speaking my language, man. Bootsy's the man.
Like, you struck a chord there. I was like, that's awesome, and it's just, it just like really, really kind of sunk in right away. And like I said, I love the flow. Now, this song in particular, I know you said you have different ways of creating and writing in your writing process. Now, this one, because I know, well, here, let me rephrase this and make it make more sense, because right now it's making sense in my head, but when I'm speaking, it's not. So, your album was essentially an homage to Shelburne.
It was an homage to where I'm from in Melanchthon, because Melanchthon, Dundalk, just north of me, is the second highest town elevation in Ontario. The highest elevation in Ontario is in Sudbury, actually, on a mountain rock top. So this high latitudes perspective, looking down, not in a pious way, but like the fool on the hill noticing the race. Not necessarily running it, but watching the track. And that's what the songs are really talking about. They're talking about things that I'm hearing in conversation from family and friends about their concerns about things, my own concerns about things, and trying to ask questions about why the things are the way that they are. And I'm not just talking about sky blue and
right.
Grass green, political things, the systems of food, where food comes from, talking about your kids and your relationship to your kids. All of those kinds of things to me are so prevalent in this day and age in terms of how people are communicating with one another. In less than 25 years, we've gone to hang out on porches to, texting all the time.
Right.
It used to be a faux pas to, call somebody and leave a message if somebody passed away. Now it's a given that a text is enough. So these basic human sentiment, emotional sentiments, and subtle energy systems are what I'm most concerned with, because they deal once again with what I was saying before, perception.
Right.
To me, everything is like, you could take it at face value, but there's far more going on behind that and that goes for a multitude of things, not just directly in front of you, the coffee cup, what's behind it, a pen. It's not just that. It's the bigger questions, political stuff. Who's growing our food? Why is it illegal to do that now?
Right.
Those kinds of things. So that's what it was, and homage, yes, in that regard. And there's a tune I wrote on the record that features, a sitar that's called Melanchthon Junebug song. Nice. From Melanchthon County in a township. So that was more of the homage on that level than anything.
Well, I'm just curious about it because I want to try to tie some of the songs into it, because Jamaica's seems like a more kind of like, we'll call it maybe like kind of free love sort of song. It's easy to get into. It's really cool, but it just completely kind of good vibes,
Well, and that's the other thing. Jamaica, for me, being on the record, again, working with the title, the last 3 years of going back and forth there and doing work with people, hang out, playing music, cooking food, not spending time on a resort,
right.
Living in the jungle, and at the highest regions, if I can quote Bob. I've been to Bob's house.
Nice.
I've met some of his family. St. Anne's is the highest region in Jamaica. So it also amplified that feeling of perspective. Not only that, Jamaica was a place for me as a Westerner that regrounded me in terms of how I feel about not being afraid. And that, once again, those things, like we were saying at the beginning of the show, well, the Canadian's opinion of American and American opinion, it's the same thing. People are like, well, don't leave the resort. You have to be escorted by people. Yes, in some cases you may need to be with some people, but that fear and realizing that people are there to look after you, and you can get in the crossfire of something, but it helped me feel less afraid about a multitude of things in my life and come to terms with what those are, and to be able to talk about it freely and openly and say, look, I can go to Toronto and get stabbed.
Oh, exactly.
I can go to Kingston and get stabbed, to Trenchtown. So it doesn't matter where you are, it's how you carry yourself and the respect that you also display, because people in Jamaica, they have nothing. They're
right.
Poor, they're impoverished, but they're rich in culture, which is something once again I'm saying I think we've lost. Every Jamaican has a cell phone, a great cell phone, but they don't have running water. They might not have a toilet.
Right.
That is something that we all take for granted. Yeah, we all have a fridge. We all could just go to the tap and turn. Now, when I see people just running water in a men's room somewhere and they're looking in a mirror and they're not, I get pissed off about it, because to me it's like it's precious. So it's helped me understand more about my own surroundings, and that helped tie into the record that same feeling. I'm pointing this out. Jamaica is this place. Yeah, it is fun. I'm talking about Red Stripe, make sure the police don't see you. But it was also an energy tune. That island, it almost is like it has two telluric currents of energy that flow underneath it. And when the plane lands and you step off of it, yes, I'm on vacation. I'm in a tropical paradise, but at the same time, there's something very energy related about it, without sounding too cosmic and hokey, because I'm very attuned to that.